Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sociology at Brock. This is all very new, so bear with us. So myself and Dec are trying to get something up and running for you so that you don't miss out at all in terms of your sociology. And where we're at the moment is research methods, and we really do need everyone to do all the work that we set here so that you've got nice full notes and that we're all ready for next year. Okay, so we're on to research methods, which is component 2 of the exam. And this is worth 20% of your overall marks, and it's a separate exam that you'll sit at the end of the 2 years. Okay, so some of you have already started this unit and some of you haven't started it at all. So we are really going from scratch, and I know some classes will have some notes already. Okay, so one of the main tasks that you've got to do over the next week is to compile some notes on research methods. Now, as you can see, I've drawn up a table. Now, this is only part of a table. On the left-hand side, you can see the methods that we're going to be looking at, and we have to define these methods. We also need to look at some of the strengths of the methods, and in yellow, I've put something called key term. Now, I'm going to explain that later, but this is really important that you're able to understand key terms. And then we're going to look at weaknesses, and again, key terms. And we're going to look at some of the examples of the studies that we've looked at in education and youth, but also some new ones that you could use for examples in your work. And we've also got to understand what kinds of sociologists really like these certain methods. So these are called theoretical approaches. So you can see that you could make a table like this, and you need several. So going on to the next. So you can see we've got unstructured interviews, focus groups, longitudinal studies, and we've also got observations. Okay. Now you could do it like that, or you could just write notes in your normal sort of on file paper. So what the main things you need to do a definition. You need to be able to put 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. You've got to be able to say who they're liked by and an example. So over the next week, this is your task, to make notes on all of these things. Okay, so key terms. Now look, I've put them as pots of gold because they really are pots of gold in terms of your marks. This is what the examiners are looking for you to be using. And really, we use this as the structure of every paragraph now. These key terms, there are 5 main key terms. There are some more that you can put in, and we'll talk about those later. But the main ones are validity. So really, we're talking about what are sociologists looking for in their data? Why are they going about doing research? Well, some of them really want validity. So they really want a true or accurate picture of the social situation. Some of these sociologists want reliability. So they want a method that can be consistent and they can get the same data no matter who is studying that situation. And it's replicable. So we use the word replicable or repeatable, and you're still getting the same results. Another key one is representativeness. This just means how typical your findings are in terms of the group that you're studying. So have you got a typical slice of that population? So I know in class I've used the example of a pizza, and if you had a typical slice of pepperoni pizza, then that slice would have all the bits of a pepperoni pizza. So it would have pepperoni, tomato, mozzarella. And a slice that isn't typical would be a very poor slice that would just have a bit of tomato on it. So representative means having all the ingredients of that group. Generalizability is the ability to use your findings and then apply them to a bigger group. Now, I think we've all looked at Willis's lads as an example of the working class. And some people say, well, you can't really go from such a small group, just 12 lads, to say things about the whole, to say things about the working class as a whole. So generalizability means the ability to apply your findings to a larger group. Now, this last one, verstehen, is a German word, and it comes from Weber, who is one of the sociologists we'll look at next year. And it really means getting a deep and rich understanding of a social situation. And some sociologists really believe that that is what's the most important thing of research. So why are these key terms so important to you? Why are they golden? Well, it's because our little friend Pia has a new element to it. So we're looking at peckers for your new paragraph structure. So, okay, let's move on to other bits that you need to understand to see the whole picture of research. Now, just like with the other parts of sociology, where we've looked at theories or sort of ideas about how sociology should be, we've looked at functionalism and Marxism and postmodernism. Well, in the same way, we've got theories in terms of research. But there are three main theories. So we have got, on the one hand, we have got positivism. On the opposite side, we have got interpretivism. And in the middle, as a kind of mixture of both, we've got realism. Okay, and the next few slides are going to take you through the different approaches. And what I'd like you to do is to record something like this in your notes. So first of all, then you need to pause the video, make sure you've got some table like this, and then go through the following slides and record notes from it. Okay, there's quite a lot of writing on this slide, but this is looking first of all at positivism, which is probably the first kind of approach to sociology, and it's a very scientific view of society. So positivists believe that we should be studying society in a scientific way, in a very objective way, unbiased. They wanted to look at the whole picture. They wanted to see, or they do want to see, what's going on in society. So they use quantitative methods. Now, quantitative methods tend to be looking at numbers, so they're looking at statistics, so that they can look at trends and patterns to see what's happening in society. And we've seen some of this going on in our education units, because we've been looking at statistics on in what ways children on lower incomes, on receiving free school meals, how they're performing at school, and that there is a difference. So what I'd like you to do is have a read of this and make some notes in your on your table. So pause it here. An example of a positivist is Emile Durkheim. Now, we know Durkheim from our study of functionalism, and there's a little clip here if you wanted to look in a little bit more detail. It's quite a nice little clip that rounds up Durkheim in general, but he did a study of suicide, and what he did was he looked at this in a very scientific way by looking at death certificates and looking at the features of the people who died through suicide. So he was looking at suicide as a feature of society, and he was trying to look at it in a very scientific and objective way. And the great thing about this study was that he was able to use data from several countries. So it's a massive study that he did. And he found out really through his study that those who commit suicide tend to lack social integration. So again, please take some notes on this and put it in the example box at the bottom of your table. On the very opposite scale then is another theoretical perspective in sociology, and this is interpretivism. And it can be described as anti-scientific because really these kinds of sociologists are saying that people can't be studied in the kind of scientific way that the positivists thought that they could be studied. What they're after, these interpretivists, is a really deep and thorough understanding of the social situation. So you could see these as looking at why things are happening in society rather than what is happening in society. And as one of the key features that I've put here, they care more about the depth and detail of what they're getting in terms of their study rather than the breadth. So for them, validity and verstehen are really important, whereas large-scale, representative, generalizable studies are not really their focus. Okay, so you need to pause and take some notes. So we've looked at the two extremes of theoretical perspective, but I suppose in the middle is a more modern approach, and this is known as realism, which is described as a halfway house. And this is really looking at the benefits of both the scientific and the non-scientific approaches to sociology. And some people call this a type of scientific approach. But there's a difference between the kind of science that biology and chemistry offer us, because they are described as being closed systems. They have very few variables, so you can study them in quite a consistent way, and a way that isn't going to vary. But in terms of society, people are quite unpredictable at times, so they can't be studying quite the same way. So some people have likened the study of society in sociology to something like the study of the weather, where we can sort of have an idea of what's going on, but it's an open system, so we can't always predict. So realism is saying, okay, science is of benefit, but we've got to realise that it has limits, and actually finding out why people behave the way they do is also important. So in a way, realism is great because it's getting validity and some deeper understanding, but it's also got the reliability that positivism offers us. So again, please pause and take some notes. Okay, so the next bit that we've got to look at in this table is how to define these methods that we've got written down. And this is quite easy. I think you'll be able to have a guess at this. So what I've done is I've put some definitions here, and I want you to sort them out into that first column, please, so that you've got a clear definition for each method. Okay, so pause again. Okay, the next task is one that I think that you can do and work out. Strengths and weaknesses of the methods. Okay, for each method, you need to be able to understand 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. So these are disadvantages and advantages to these methods. But the key thing that you've got to be able to do is to use those golden key terms to explain why they are a strength or a weakness. So let's have a look at unstructured interviews. And you know, an unstructured interview is a series of questions that's asked by a researcher to a participant. There's no particular order. The researcher can add to those questions as they go along. and it's pretty much a conversation. So these unstructured interviews, we need to say what a feature is. So a participant can answer in their own words so they can clearly explain their situation. So can you see that then would lead to, well, it gives valid data. Because they can answer in their own words, they can give a true and accurate reflection of their social situation. Let's look at a weakness then. So unstructured interviews. Yeah, they're very conversational, but can you imagine all that data that's being collected? So what we can say in the middle here is they can be very hard to analyse due to the conversational nature of the content. What I might pick up as a theme in terms of that interview, Dec might not. So there's no consistency. So it leads to unreliable, as they're hard to replicate or to repeat. So I want you to look carefully at the way that these points are strung together. And the reason why we need to have all these three elements, so what something is, a feature of it, and its key term, is because you need to be able to write something that's similar to what I've written at the bottom of the slide. So we need to be able to write things like this in your paragraphs. So one weakness of unstructured interviews is that they can be very difficult to analyse. This is because participants get to answer at length in their own words. This makes the method unreliable. Reliability refers to the consistency of data and how replicable it is. Okay, so you've got quite a lot of work to do now on your strengths and weaknesses of the method. And the place that I want you to go to collect this information is a really good website. It's designed for your specification. And there is a hyperlink here to take you to this area. Okay, and what you need to do is you need to make sure that down in this bottom left hand corner that you're on English rather than Welsh. And then what you'll need to do is to go up to this little symbol at the top that has the lines on it, and you'll have to go through each method, so questionnaires, interviews, observations, and make sure you're recording a couple of strengths and a couple of weaknesses and try and put in that key term. Now sometimes the key term will be there, sometimes you'll need to use your own brain to work that one out. So you need to go there now and do a fair bit of work. This should take you quite some time. So pause. Okay, so your notes so far should look like this. You should have gone through and defined all the methods. You should have 2 strengths for each method, linking to key terms. You should have 2 weaknesses for each method, linking to the key terms. We haven't done studies yet, so that would be something that we do next week. But I'd like you to try now to put in the theoretical approach that you think would choose this kind of method. So I'm hoping that you can see that using a closed question questionnaire is something that would probably be liked by positivists, because you're going to get quantitative data and you're going to get it quite easily, so you can use large samples and get representative samples. So have a go at this now, filling in that last column, liked by. Okay, so that's it for now. I think you've got a fair bit of work you should have got through this week. Next week on Remote Baroque Sociology, we're going to complete the table with examples of studies. We're also going to be using different terminology with you. We're going to be talking surveys and ethnographic approaches, and we're going to be looking at quantitative versus qualitative. And also, just to remind you, There will be an assessment after Easter that you need to be preparing for. Now, this is not on research methods, it's on component 1 only, and it will be on education and youth. So there will be some form of assessment in that week after Easter that will tell you more about. Okay everyone, well done. Thanks very much. See you soon.